But you putting "and more" here, this smacks of you're hiding something. What is the "and more"? It's this type of manipulation that it really does get me set off, because this shows that nothing is going to change. This is illegal. The entire Call of Duty community is being held hostage. Hey everybody, my name is Mikey Dubs. I'm an OG COD YouTuber, and I'm also a senior history student at Syracuse University. And I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps reading documents in different kinds of orders. So I've done a lot of reading and deep diving into official documents. So I thought I'm kind of particularly well suited to give a review or a reaction to this Call of Duty matchmaking blog that came out on January 29th, 2024, where they officially have started talking to us about the skill-based matchmaking process. So without further ado, let's get into it. I have read this through once all the way, and I'm going to be giving you a more detailed review of what I was doing, kind of a test run for myself yesterday. You can find this article on the Call of Duty website. However, I will be posting a link to this blog in the description. Call of Duty Matchmaking Intel. Call of Duty Update, an inside look at matchmaking. This was posted January 29, 2024 by the Call of Duty staff. Now, the fact that they don't have an actual author here is a little bit concerning to me. I did go back and look at some of these other articles that they have posted. For instance, this Modern Warfare 3 Season 2 content fully revealed. This article is written by David Hodgson, and it says, prepare for a Colossus content drop, and it's written by a person and all that stuff, right? And has multiple chapters, but not every single one of their blogs. In fact, I found this blog right here to be the only one that involved a specific person. They either don't put an author at all, or if you go down to, like, say, the patch notes, they'll say by Raven Software, right? Or they'll say by, some more patch notes here, by Sledgehammer Games and Treyarch. So Call of Duty in their blogs is making it a point to not tell us who the author is, which is strange, because this blog, I'm not necessarily sure it reads with one voice, meaning I'm not necessarily sure how many authors were in this. I'm assuming it's more than one, but we'll see. All right, let's see what they got to tell us. With the launch of Modern Warfare 3 Season 1 late last year, we committed to a conversation with our community about matchmaking. Okay, this is much needed. We've been asking for this since 2009. At least I have been like, what is actually going on here? Well, since the implementation of skill-based matchmaking. Today's intel is intended to kick off that dialogue and is a new beginning for what we hope will be an ongoing conversation about matchmaking, sharing our process and learnings with you to answer questions and concerns we've seen within the community. This paragraph, I think, is really, really important because they are committing to sharing their process. Right? Sharing their process. We as a community have been vocalizing our issues with this process for years. So we've done our part of the conversation. Now it's their turn to come in and share their process, which is something that they almost do later on in this article, but they don't actually. Because in order to share your process, you have to show us what's coming in, what is happening to it, and then what happens when it goes out, right? She does the second two, but she does not do the first. She does not tell us what they're actually looking at, but we'll get there. This blog focuses on how matchmaking works across multiplayer. Okay, this is a note about, this paragraph is a note about how this is only for multiplayer and not for Warzone or ranked. For players that have heard the term but aren't familiar with what we're referring to, matchmaking is a multi-factor process to place players on teams with and against each other to compete in online games. Okay, so when they say this, they're going to be using this multi-factoredness to categorize the system of matchmaking so that they can better explain it to everyone. This is a strategy by not just academics, but people across the board in strategies to categorize your thought process and then tackle each one at a time. I have done this in regards to matchmaking, and in my explanation, I said that there are a couple factors, and the first is your game mode. I think I might have even said platform first, or what game you're playing, but the game mode you choose, and then your geographical location and or connection. Even though those two things are heavily correlated, they're not 100% correlated, but your geographical location, how close are you to other players, because you're going to be sending data back and forth between them. The single biggest priority with respect to multiplayer matchmaking is delivering a fun experience to our players. Them expressing their goal here is important. because I think that we kind of have the same goal. While we have many years of testing and learning as part of our matchmaking process, we are continuously working to deliver the best experiences possible. For that reason, we continue to test and look forward to more enhancements to come. Okay, so what they're saying here is they've done a lot in this field already. Hey, if you're reading this, we've done a lot, and it is continuous. It has never stopped. The grievances that people have with skill-based matchmaking are not new. And so by you saying, yes, we've done this for a long time and been working on this for a long time, you're saying to me, hey, I've been ignored for a long time. Not that I personally have voiced my opinion. It's something that I've done recently, but it's not something that I've been out vocally in the community, anything more than maybe a YouTube comment here and there. This paragraph, I think, does more harm than good. While we have many years of testing and learning as part of our matchmaking process, you've been doing this for many years. You already know what you're talking about. You already know the process. You already know. So like you're looking to explain your process to us, like you said in the beginning. Okay. With that being said, I take it mostly back. But to me, what this paragraph reads like is when Riot was having an issue with new champions being overly complicated and having a lot of tools in their kit, and a YouTuber named Hashinshin complained that the new champions are overloaded, and a Riot employee responded on Twitter saying, "Oh, Hashinshin, your opinion matters because you're good at top lane." And I believe he said, being good at top lane is one thing, right? Or something along those lines. And then he then said, I'd take 200 years of gameplay design or champion design or character design instead, meaning he was adding up all of the years of design experience that him and his peers had and saying that is more valuable than your opinion because you don't have that. Yes, you're good at top lane, but if there's a disagreement between you and what my team thinks, I'm going to go with my team because they have 200 years of design experience. And the 200 years meme immediately took off. Every time something happened in the game that was very specifically a new champion that has come out and they just destroy you, that's 200 years. And in fact, you might even say that there's a break in the champions, and there's the 200 years champions, and then there's the 200 back champions. And there's like a significant design difference between them all. Now, I believe it's at Aphelios, but I would honestly say it almost goes all the way back to Rek'Sai. But anyways, we can move on. We often see the community refer to matchmaking system as skill-based matchmaking. Yes, we often see the community refer to our matchmaking system as skill-based matchmaking. That is true. We refer to your matchmaking system as skill-based matchmaking because it is influenced by skill-based matchmaking. Not that skill is the main component, but that it is influenced. Call of Duty does consider skill, or more specifically, player performance, as a component, as do most in the industry. Oh, here we go. But skill is not the dominant variable. We consider and prioritize several factors to create lobbies. Okay, right off the bat, this is going to get bad. And I don't want to be overly critical, because at the end of the day, I actually find common ground with a lot of what they're saying here. But I find problem with the way this entire introduction is worded to players. They are saying, hey, community, Call of Duty does not Call of Duty community, right? We often see the community, us, refer to matchmaking as skill-based matchmaking. We do consider skill, but, right? Erase all this from your mind. We do consider skill, but skill is not the dominant variable. We consider and prioritize several factors to create lobbies. Don't be fooled by what they're saying here. They are downplaying the amount that skill is influencing who you're playing with and against. Because there's other bigger factors. And I agree there are other bigger factors. And they are, as I have stated in previous videos, the game mode you choose and your connection or your geographical location. I tie those things together-ish, even though you're able to play games like Pokemon Unite with people all across the world with 60 to 90 ping. I'm still considering connection and geographical location kind of the same thing. They have other factors that they put in there, but just right off the bat, don't let them fool you by saying, oh, connection is more important than skill. Don't worry about skill, worry about connection. No. Connection and game mode choice are already baked in. They have nothing to do with skill-based matchmaking. But they are going to try to convince us that they do. And this is the first graphic that we look at that I'm just not understanding. Matchmaking overview. Call of Duty multiplayer matchmaking is composed of many factors. In the graphic, there's a circle. In the center of the circle, you have lobby. Okay, so this lobby is made of all these factors. Connection, time to match, skill performance, platform, voice chat, input device, recent maps and modes, and playlist diversity. Okay, and then they go about breaking down all of these. Okay, before they even do that, before we even get into it. Okay, so I've made this graphic larger, and they put this graphic in the very beginning of their breakdown, okay? Because they want us to see it this way, that each of these factors contribute to the whole of creating the lobby, okay? I'm going to read this through what it reads to me, and I've read the entire article, okay? Connection. This is what I would consider geographical location. They call this the primary factor along with time to match. You can take time to match and remove it from this graph. Remove it from the graph. Why? Because connection and time to match are the same. What is time to match? Time to match is how long it takes you to find a game after you click Q. You do not want to wait any time at all before getting to a match. That's a huge factor why Call of Duty has been so successful for so long. The time to match has been so short. So they emphasize things like time to match. But what they're not telling you here is that time to match and skill performance are the two that are opposed to each other. While the matchmaking bot is trying to find you a game, as soon as it says we will only accept players within this skill, you now are waiting longer to play with players that are around you. Now, they attempt to connect connection and time to match as a pairing, which is also a little bit true, because if there are 10 people in your house that all queue up to play a game of team deathmatch, you will all get placed together more or less. And by the same logic, if you queue up, you will more or less get placed with people in your town, in your county, in your state, in your province, in your region, in your country, in your continent, in your hemisphere. And so, your time to match is influenced by your connection, because if there's no one around your geographical location to connect with, your time to match will also increase. The further away you allow your matchmaking to search for players, the worse your connection will be, but the faster your time to match. So yes, these two are connected. And this is something we see in the OG Modern Warfare games, in the OG games, when it says testing matches within 50 milliseconds ping, testing matches within 60 milliseconds ping, testing matches within 75 milliseconds ping, right up to a cap. And then it just starts searching everywhere. That's because these two things are connected. But what they don't explain in this is that skill performance is a huge factor. In League of Legends Challenger, the highest ranks, Challenger players have complained about time to match for the entirety of the game's existence, because there's just no players in their skill bracket. So let's not let them place these things and disconnect them from each other, or let them sweep one under the rug. Let's not let them get away by putting skill and performance on the same level as recent mode/maps, which essentially just means that If you just played on a map, you won't get that map again, which is in the old games, by the way. By putting skill and performance on the same level as these other things, they're saying they're all of equal importance, which they are not. And I know they're about to say that they're not, but the graphic is misleading. We'll go to the next. Number 1, connection. As the community will attest, ping is king. Connection is the most critical and heavily weighted factor in the matchmaking process. Okay, this is true. However, as soon as they have something that's true, they are immediately pinging the community. Literally, they're saying to the community, yeah, you guys are totally right. Ping is the most important. Yeah, it is. But you don't have to try to get on our good sides. I mean, I get this is a conversation, but just know, if you read this, be aware of what you're reading. They are pandering in this sentence, okay? Connection is the most critical, and honestly, the author might not have been thinking, I'm going to pander and then write this down. He's saying, oh, this is a way for me to connect with my audience. My audience is the community. As the community will attest, ping is king. That does not need to be in there. You can say ping is king. You do not need to have the sentence about the community. I am reading this knowing that they have the community as in the focal point of swaying my opinion towards them now. 100%. If I didn't have it before, I have it now. I feel like I'm being manipulated. Even if I'm not, it reads that way to me. Connection is the most critical and heavily weighted factor in the matchmaking process. Yes, this is something that I have said, but I disagree because they put it as playlist diversity on their circle. I call it the mode. Which mode are you queuing for? Team deathmatch, domination? You offer modes, right? This is the playlist diversity they're talking about. You offer us modes. I choose a mode, right? I don't choose to see the playlist diversity as separating me from the player base. Even though we are queuing for different modes, they are conflating a lot of different ideas in this circle. I don't like that. It's confusing. It's confusing me, and I'm sure if it's confusing me, it's going to be confusing to a lot of players, or if they just don't get why this is here, that they might just pass over it and not really understand. And then you wonder why, wait, we put out this blog. I guess they just don't read. Our community are dumb. No. If you are trying to inform your community about something, or if you're a developer trying to inform your community about something, you have to remember where you came from. Academics, teachers, professors, people that taught you your craft, they did not give up on you after their first explanation failed. If you say something in the next, if there's backlash in this blog, or people are complaining about things that you've talked about in this blog, do not conclude that they are stupid. Conclude that 1, they didn't read it, or 2, if they did read it, that it wasn't clear. And if you can go back, and if you can really go back and say, we think this is as clear as possible, and we're seeing resounding feedback that it didn't quite get through to players, whoever wrote this one, they are removed from the team, and someone else writes the next one. Because there's a clear disconnect between the audience and the players. It's not that they did a bad job. It's not that this is written poorly. In fact, I think this is very nice. It's got that, I don't want to say it, I don't think this was written by AI at all, but it has that chat GPT layout where they give you an introduction, right? Then they break down their terms into numbered bullet points, and then they give you a conclusion. This is very clearly a chat GPT style. I mean, this is a style before chat GPT. But this is what it looks like nowadays, which to me, as soon as I see this format, I just kind of, I won't hold it against anyone. It's chat AI bots are a relatively new phenomenon. Anyways, so they say connection is the biggest one. Okay, time to match. This factor is the second most critical to the matchmaking process. We all want to spend time playing the game rather than waiting for the matches to start. This is true, but this is not an input to the system, right? Time to match is not an input to the system. I guess this is what I want to call this. This circle is a list of inputs to the matchmaking system that determine what lobbies you're placed into. Time to match is not an input. That's an output. Time to match is a measure in seconds of how long it takes to get into a game. It is not an input to the process. You can impact time to match. You can place it outside and say these things impact time to match. Time to match is a factor we look at on the back end. We want to influence it. But by putting it in your input circle, you're horribly conflating an idea that shouldn't be in there. And the fact that you even come down here and you give it these nice 2 big sentences. Let's see it. This factor is the second most critical to the matchmaking process. We all want to spend time playing the game rather than waiting for matches to start. I don't like how time to match, again, a lot of what we do when we read a piece like this is we're not just assessing their language, we're also assessing their format, how they're choosing to construct their ideas. This is the construction of their idea of matchmaking. And I disagree with this model. I don't think this model can be applied. Why? Because time to match is not an input to the matchmaking process. Even if you are weighing it in your head, it should not be added into an input here. In my opinion, the addition of time to match in this article is maybe not intentionally, but it is manipulation. They are saying to the community, we have you at heart, right? So when we say things you disagree with, when we say things that you disagree with, just remember, we have you at heart, time to match. But it's not an input to the system. In fact, they have done this before, earlier in the article. Yeah, they say the single biggest priority with respect to multiplayer matchmaking is delivering a fun experience to our players. Right? They're trying to tell you, hey, we care about you. And then they say something, we often see the community refer to our community as skill-based matchmaking. Refer to our matchmaking as skill-based matchmaking, right? But skill is not the dominant variable, okay? So the community refers to matchmaking as skill-based matchmaking, but skill is not the dominant variable. They buddy you up here, and then they drop something on you 2 paragraphs in a row. We've been working on this for a long time, okay? And we see that you think that skill is the dominant factor, but for us, it is definitely not, okay? This is what they're saying. So they buttered us up right here with time to match. I wonder what is going to happen next. 3, the following factors are also critical to the matchmaking process. Okay, so this is where I stopped my first time through and scrolled back up to the graphic, scrolled back down, and said, these are inconsistent. The graphic is showing all of these on an equal playing field. But now, what did they do? Connection, time to match. They got to number 3, and they were like, shoot. In my opinion, what happened here was they went 1, 2, and they were going to go 3, skill performance, but then they were like, wait. Time to match and skill and performance, they're not similarly structured. These 2 are, but this 3rd one isn't. So you know what? We're going to make a new structure that puts all of these as number 3. So in that case, it should be 1, 2, inside this green box, a whole bunch of little ones. But no, they equate them in their graphic, and in their format, I think in their format, they realized that this was a failed way to represent their idea. But they said, you know what? The graphic is beautiful, right? These are our categories. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to send it with these. That is my opinion. The following factors are also critical to the matchmaking process. Playlist diversity, the number of playlists available for players to choose from. Again, this is where I'm having a disconnect. They are not explaining things in regular terms. Playlist diversity, the number of playlists available for your players to choose from. Yes, that separates the community. I'm with you if that's what you're saying. But you're saying connection is king. I thought we were talking about matchmaking. And then you say the number of playlists is critical. It's not. The number of playlists isn't critical to my matchmaking. The number of playlists is not. No. It is the playlist I'm specifically choosing is critical. Because that's the first criteria to get me into a match. If I queue for domination, you're not going to put me in a free-for-all. You know what I'm saying? And if you're with me here on this point, if this reads weird to you and you're like they're not getting it, this isn't reading clearly, put it in the comments, because I personally think this just does not read clearly. The words, the sentence is structured simply. The words are simple, but the idea is not consistent. The number of players available for players to choose from is a critical factor to the matchmaking process. I feel like we're going somewhere else. Like, to me, it feels like they're bringing me to a place where this is really hard, because when you read some books, it feels like you're not meant to read it. It feels like this isn't where you were not the intended audience. And this blog, I am clearly the intended audience, but it feels like they're pulling me to a realm where they know a lot of things, right? Where they have a lot of information, and they are not considering the fact that I'm not speaking their language. But that could just be me. It's a very difficult thing to avoid when you're writing in general. It's maybe why I'm thinking they're doing it, but that could, again, let me know. Recent maps/modes. Considering maps you have recently played on, as well as your mode preferences, editable and quick play settings. Okay, so this is where it starts to make a little bit more sense, okay? You no longer, in the new matchmaking system, you no longer get put in a server and play with the same players for multiple games in a row. After each game, you get removed and get placed back into a new one. And so what this is saying is, when you get removed and placed into a new one, it won't put you in the same map that you just played. And that was in the old games. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. When the game ended, it didn't swap your server, but they also didn't put you on the same map. And so this isn't new. This has been here for a long time. It has to be more complicated now, because they're taking everybody out and putting everybody back in. And so now they have to have a more complicated code that says, oh, you just played on this map. Everyone individually just played on this map. Okay, we won't put them in that map again. Well, it was a lot simpler when you just put everyone back in the same lobby. Anyways, and they also mention modes, editable into quick play settings, which means in the new games, you can go into a filter and say, I want to queue for team deathmatch, kill confirm, domination, any number of modes. And so what this is saying is, if I queue for that, I won't get team deathmatch 6 times in a row. I'll get a variety of the different ones I have chosen to put into my queue, which is a very nice feature. Yeah, it's just a very nice feature, but it's only applicable in the new style of matchmaking, which is you remove everyone, then everyone gets their own matchmaking settings, and then you put everybody back into the pool. If you remove everyone from the lobbies, and I will say this now, and I will say it again, and I will continue to say it, removing everyone from the lobby, giving them their own matchmaking factors, and then placing them back into the pool to be rematch made is a mistake. Even if it's faster than the 1 minute wait time between matches from the old school days. And you're like, no way. How could that be? Our data is going to indicate that if you put players right back into the next match, they're less likely to stop playing. Have you ever heard of burnout? And this is something that this is just a quick example. It doesn't even have to be foolproof. But they use a metric in this article later on, and they heavily rely on it, and so do other companies. And it's that I think is a little bit flawed, and that is, they hate when people close the game. They hate it. It's the worst thing for them. They have designed ways to collect data on when people leave the game and close the game and stop playing. And that is the number one metric, I believe, for when they decide to make changes. How can we get people to stop closing the game? And what they probably realized is people close the game between matches. And they concluded that if we shorten the time between matches, people will stop closing the game. It is probably true. But what I am saying is that's not always a good thing. Just because players closing the game go down does not mean that the quality of the game is going up. But you're saying, oh, people, if the game is good, people will play it longer. Like it's a 1-for-1 correlation. It's not. Just because people continue to play the game does not mean the game is better. And that's a fight that a lot of gaming communities have with their developers all the time. by trying to pull as many people in for as long as possible, you compromise a lot of what makes games good, in my opinion. Ask the Borderlands community. Anyways, skill and performance, finally. This is used to give our players a global community with a wide skill range, the opportunity to have an impact in every match. Okay, they say it outright. This is what their goal is. The goal for skill-based matchmaking is to give players the opportunity to have an impact in every match. They give a caveat to our players, right? They say our players, and by the way, reader, when we say our players, we are talking about this group of people, right? A global community with a wide skill range. So hey, players, our players, if you're reading this, we have a lot more types of players than you are aware of, right? And let's be honest, who's the audience here? The audience is going to be medium to high skill players, or people that care, which are usually medium to high skill players. More on the high skill player side. So they're saying, hey, high skill players, they can put high skill here. The people reading this, we have a global community with a wide skill range, okay? It's not just about you. You already have. You are spoiled, high skill player. You already have the opportunity to have an impact in every match, high skill player. You are privileged because you already have an impact. You don't understand what it's like to not have an impact. So what we are going to do as the developer is we are going to put bad players into games with bad players and good players into games with good players so that the bad players can get better scores and feel more dopamine and keep playing. Good players, you already love this game. You are more likely to not quit after having a bad game. For that reason, it's a win-win. By putting you with good players, you can still sweat your heart out and maybe get just as many kills as you were getting before, but you're going to die a lot. The biggest problem with skill-based matchmaking is that it stops the people, the medium-skilled players, from pursuing late-game goals. What late-game goals am I talking about? Number one, securing high kill streaks. Ever since the introduction of kill streaks, players have yearned to be getting them. The biggest one that set this culture ablaze was the tactical nuke from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. A big part of the endgame grind since that day has been to secure the biggest kill streak possible. It's a huge part of what makes this game special. No other games do it like that. It is a Call of Duty phenomenon, and it needs to be not only secured, but cherished. It should be pushed. It should be what the game is centered around, in my opinion. It maybe not as the central focal point, but as a major asset to the game are these kill streaks. By putting skilled players with skilled players and bad players with bad players, what you are doing is you are not allowing for players to go on high kill streaks as easily. You're removing the fodder from the match. The easy kills that come sprinting around the corner at full speed with silenced pistols. The fodder will be playing against the fodder. And the artillery will be playing against the artillery. It's mouse versus mouse and cat versus cat. The mouse loves it because it's not being chased and eaten by the cat. But for the cats, it's miserable. By making the experience for the cats so miserable, when people hit that mid game, when people hit that mid-level skill, and they're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit better now, they start to realize, I'll never get a nuke. I'll never get one. I'll never have that experience. I'll never be able to push for it. Because I will always be playing against people that are around my skill level. And so my best chance is gone. And what does this end up leading to? Well, if you're a content creator, you're going to reverse boost. which is something I won't even talk about because I don't think it's that big of a problem. But reverse boosting is playing poorly on purpose so that the matchmaking thinks you're a bad player, so that they place you with bad players, and then you turn up the jets, slap on a UMP 45 sounds, and run the lobby, right? In my opinion, you do not need to put skill into the matchmaking at all. I believe that putting skill into the matchmaking of a casual playlist in a Call of Duty game is a way of making the company more money at the expense of the overall experience. I don't think I could say it any more clearly than that. Some other factors they use to keep people in lobbies together: input device, controller, or mouse or keyboard. I think crossplay is really, 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 really cool. And so I'm all about them introducing crossplay, but then being like, oh, that causes some problems. We have to fix those problems. This totally makes sense to me. Platform, the device, PC, console that you're playing on. This, again, it's along the same lines. Cross-platform is really, really cool, but it's PC players hate when aim assist gets them killed, and console players probably hate when PC players just rinse them all the time. Voice chat, enabled or disabled. This I don't think is necessary. However, it is kind of a nice feature if you can sustain it with the player base. Right? If there's enough people playing where it doesn't matter and you can factor this in, this is pretty nice because I usually play with voice chat off. And so if someone's trying to get in contact with me or someone's going like tap tap tap, anybody here got a mic? Anybody here got a mic? If you've ever been there and no one is responding to you, it's pretty tough. But at the same time, if everybody's talking, it's also kind of rough. So I want to agree with them here, but at the same time, there's always a give and take. Every time a player begins matchmaking in multiplayer, for example, the process needs to work through all these factors to find other players, all of which are also being analyzed to quickly assemble a lobby that is stable and competitive. So what they're saying is, hey, players, this is a complex process, and you might think it's super simple, but it's not. It has all these factors. Don't you see all these factors? This is so complex. You're small. I know they're not reading. I know they're not saying this explicitly, and I know that they're not trying to sound condescending, and they're just trying to help us understand their point of view. But I am telling you, this is a spot where they are going against the community, or they're saying something that they know the community is not going to like, and I'm going to point it out. And I'm going to point it out in the language that most, like, how far this could be sent, how badly someone could read this, so that you're not, if you're a developer and you're watching this, you're not surprised. Like, how could someone have read it like that? Well, I'm telling you how. This is how it reads. Every time a player begins matchmaking multiplayer, for example, okay, you're giving us an example. You're taking an educational role. The process needs to work through all these factors to find other players, all of which are also being analyzed. You don't need to put this in here. Right? You don't need to put this in here to quickly assemble a lobby that is stable and competitive. They're saying, look, we do a lot of work for you guys. We push you guys. We do so much work for you guys. Look at how much work we do for you. And then we get you in lobbies so fast. We're insane. You should be so thankful. Again, I'm being extra to reinforce the idea that someone could read it like this. These factors have resulted in a process that we believe provides the best player, yes, exactly, the best player experience, and it creates a stronger community for Call of Duty worldwide. Okay, they believe that this matchmaking system, where they take players out of a lobby when it's over, or when a game is over, and place them into a new lobby that better fits their overall skill, and also takes into account, what modes they just recently played on or what map they recently played on. Not to mention that maybe I voted for a map because I like that map. So taking it off of my recent maps might not actually be what I want anyways. They believe, as a Call of Duty community, as a Call of Duty team, that this matchmaking process is much better than what they've had in the past. And I fundamentally disagree. Let's get more technical on a few of these factors. Measuring connection for matchmaking. Okay, this is going to be a bit interesting because as far as I know, how the OG COD game has worked, and I don't know when it got switched over. I think it might have been Modern Warfare 3, but I'm not entirely sure. OG Modern Warfare 3. In OG Modern Warfare 2, a host connects to a data server of Call of Duty, right? Wherever Call of Duty has their server, they find a host, and the host is someone whose connection is stable and strong enough to ping data to the rest of the players. So the match is held somewhere in Call of Duty, building or wherever. The host gets first dibs all information on where the rockets are being shot, on where all the snipers are. They get first dibs. They then send all the information to all the end users, meaning all the other players in the lobby, who all then get second dibs depending on their connections to the host. Then they send their actions to the host, whether they moved left or moved right, or whether they've shot their gun, or whether they've thrown a grenade. All their actions get sent to the host, who then relays that back to the Call of Duty server. That has been somewhat updated as of late, where hosts are no longer used as intermediaries. Instead, Call of Duty has built enough data servers that those data centers, those data centers, they are maybe, I know Riot Games has one in Chicago, but Call of Duty might have more. I think they have more smaller ones. I'm not sure exactly, but they've removed hosts from the game. Whether you're playing for fun with friends or looking to climb the leaderboards, connection is the most important part of the online Call of Duty experience. Connection dictates the speed at which the game can transfer information from every player to and from our servers. Call of Duty's matchmaking process evaluates a metric we call delta ping, which is the difference in round-trip time for the data between your best data center, almost always the one closest to you, and the data center onto which your lobby has been placed, based on all the players in the lobby. To reiterate, we always try to maximize the times we place players in data centers that are closest to them. Yes, so what they're saying here is the host model, gone. Incoming is the data center model, which essentially is a bunch of dedicated servers that are located on data centers that you send when you log in, you're sending your ping to. You're like, hey, I'm here. Is there room for me? And they're like, sorry, there's no room for you in any of these matches. We'll send you to another data center, and the other data center maybe can get you in. That's how it works now. This is a dedicated server model. Call of Duty uses a client-server model to host matches, where the time it takes to share information between the players and the data center has an impact on the overall feel of the match. Yes. A client-server model, where the time it takes to share information between the player and the data center has an impact. This is a little bit confusing because they make it sound like they use individual hosts, but they don't. They don't. So you can just take this entire part of it and just erase it from your brain. What they're saying is the stronger your connection to the data center, the better your feel on the match. A big advantage to doing the data center model over the host model is that data centers are going to be more stable than a host, potentially. When you're doing it through a host, the host, even though they might have the most stable connection in the server, it might go out more often than maybe your Call of Duty servers in your warehouse do. Maybe not. In the Call of Duty netcode, which we've discussed in the past, there's a link to an article here, it works to reduce the effective latency but not completely eliminate it. The matchmaking process seeks to reduce the overall amount of latency by prioritizing stable connection or low ping with a shortened wait time in mind. So yes, this is nothing new. They're going to put you in places with low ping, and they're going to try low ping games first before they try high ping games, because high ping games are miserable. Measuring time to match for matchmaking. Any form of matchmaking takes time. If the wait time in a lobby is excessively long, players typically recycle the process by canceling out of matchmaking search and restarting it, or even quitting. This does not quicken the matchmaking process, and in fact can even be detrimental. This is something that I'm sure all of us do, where we're in matchmaking for a long time and we're like, okay, this is probably bugged. Let's back out and retry. They're telling us here, don't do that. Don't do that. But I'm telling you, it does not matter how effective your argument here is. People are going to do it because players aren't backing out and re-queuing because they think the process is working. That they think that your system that you're telling us to rely on is working. They think it's not working. They think it's bugged. They think that they're going to be waiting forever for nothing. And I get here you telling players, hey, you're scared of a boogeyman. That's not happening. You can trust us to stay in the queue. But the same way that you invoke other gaming companies, and I'll scroll up, when you say Call of Duty does consider skill, or more specifically player performance as a component, as do most in the industry, when you invoke others in the industry, because yes, other gaming companies do use skill-based matchmaking, like League of Legends, like Rocket League. I'm also allowed to tell you what my experience is with other games. And that is, sometimes you get put into a queue forever and it's bugged. And when you back out and re-queue, it's instant. And even if that just happens once in a while and it's observation bias where I'm only making a note of it because it happened and it doesn't actually happen most of the time, it just happens every once in a while because of sheer luck, perhaps. The fact remains that this game, Call of Duty, has a buggy UI. It has a choppy UI experience. So you cannot blame players for queuing up and when it's taking a little bit longer than usual, thinking to themselves, yeah, it's probably bugged, I'm going to back out. They give an example here which I think actually does make a little bit of sense. For example, in the popular Modern Warfare 3 Rustment playlist, which is consisting of Rust and Shipment in the rotation, players often leave lobbies and or matches early on, hoping to re-queue into Shipment instead. So if they get Rust, they want Shipment. This creates a vacant spot on a team during early stages of the match. As the matchmaking process may prioritize backfilling that spot, this could result in players perceiving that Rust is disproportionately selected over Shipment. TLDR, trying to cherry-pick maps may have an unexpected result. This does make sense, okay? So if I like Shipment and I'm queuing for Rust Shipment, and every time I get Rust, I swap to Shipment, I try, I'm creating openings in Rust, and players are going to be getting filled into that. And they're going to be thinking, I always get Rust, I never get Shipment. But this would not be a problem if we stopped removing players from the server every match and re-queued them. Because then you could just swap the map back and forth. Rust, Shipment, Rust, Shipment. When Rust shows up, put a vote. Do we want to skip Rust and go to Shipment? Cool. But instead, they're so obsessed with making that first match. That first match has to be perfect for the players. The first match. Because otherwise they'll click off. Otherwise they'll close the game. When we queued back in the day for Call of Duty matches, we were a lot of times aware of the fact that when we got into our first match, you might be getting spawn trapped on high rise. And for the Call of Duty staff, that's not acceptable because that's a very high risk situation for people to close the game forever. As Call of Duty veterans, we might be used to that and say, this is only temporary. We're going to be getting into a new map soon. But for new players, they might click off right away. Our goal is to ensure that players spend more time playing matches rather than waiting for them. And this is something that they have shown us. A big reason why they take players out of each match and put them back in is because it takes less time. But in between matches, what am I doing? I am going to my custom class pretty much every single time and messing with stuff. I'm going to my challenges and looking around. Give us time as players to look at challenges while we're still invested in the session. Measuring skill for matchmaking. While skill is one of several factors in Call of Duty multiplayer matchmaking, we know the community wants more information about how it fits into the process. Skill is determined based on a player's overall performance, kills, deaths, wins, losses, and more, including mode selection in recent matches as an overall metric across all multiplayer experiences. This is a fluid measurement that is consistently updating and reacting to your gameplay. Skill is not only a factor in matchmaking players against appropriate enemies, but also in finding teammates. This is where I'm starting to have really, really big problems with this article. Skill is determined based on a player's overall performance, kills, deaths, wins, losses, and more, including mode selection, recent matches as an overall metric, and more. What is this and more? Talk to us specifically about kills, deaths, wins, losses, and more, including mode selections and recent matches. Stop. This is a dishonest sentence. And you're saying, how can that be dishonest? Every word in it is true. It's dishonest because you're leaving out information. This is the most important sentence, because this is what's ruining the game. You take all this data and you've been farming it for years and making our matches as high-skilled players worse for years. And this is what you have for us? You say, yep, we take all of this stuff and more. You're not even... There are two crucial pieces of information missing from the sentence, and which would force you to turn it into their own paragraphs, but I don't care. I want this. How much are these weighed? Are these weighed 10%? Are wins and losses weighed more? Right? What's more weighted? Long-term skill or recent performance? That's the first thing. The second thing is this and more. What are we doing? If you're gonna list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you listed 6 here. You're gonna throw in and more? I get you're trying to be honest and don't want to drag on the list forever, but you putting and more here, this smacks of you're hiding something. What is the and more? What is it that you are tailoring our experience to? Is it how many times I throw grenades? It could be anything. Is it how many times I aim down sight? Is that how many times I hold my breath? What if you found data that players that hold their breath more often in games perform better? And so I go into a game and I'm awful, but I hold my breath the entire game. And your algorithm sees that as a high skill metric. And so it throws me to a game with people that drop nukes on newbies. I'm not saying that they put hold your breath as a metric. What I am saying is they throw this and more word out here or phrase in here, which allows me to then speculate that they could be doing it. This is a fluid measurement that is consistently updating and reacting to your gameplay. Okay, this much we know. As you play better, the new skill-based matchmaking will put you into better lobbies. Reverse boosting works the opposite way. By performing worse, you get placed into easier lobbies. Call of Duty has historically considered player performance among other factors as part of our matchmaking process. Our work in this area dates back as early as Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 2007. We'll stop right here. And I know this is where a lot of people have been saying, they've lied to us. And I'll slow down. Our work in this area dates back as early as Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 2007. Judging your performance based on these factors is something that is in OG CODs. When you get an objective, you get points. When you get a kill, you get points. When you get assists, you get points. Those points are then added up to give you an overall score at the end of the game, and that score determines what team you get placed on in the next match. It's the same thing. But instead, what they have done now is, instead of putting you as the number one player of the next match, instead what they do is they put you as a medium skilled player in the next match, into a brand new match. Even if there's a guy whose name is Quickscopes XXJX39, and he goes, and he goes 25-0 for a new quickscoping, right? And he wrecks you. And all you want to do the next game is get in there and wreck him and try your best. You can't. They're gone forever. You continue the same paragraph. Skill is implemented across the video game industry. They're doing this again. They're saying, listen, it's not just us. Everyone does this. And we recognize that continuous refinement is required to deliver the best possible experience for our players. Okay, they're saying, guys, everyone does it, and we know that this is a learning process. How about this? How about you stop saying everyone does it as an excuse for why you do it? I'm down for the Call of Duty 4 point system. Don't try this by saying, oh yeah, we've been working on this system since COD 4. You've actually been secretly, if you like the old games, you like the system. No, this is not the same. This is not the same. There was no data mining of your overall performance across multiple lobbies. As soon as your score went to 0, you got placed on a random team. After the first game, your score would then dictate what team you went on after that. The only time that the 2 or 3 highest scored players would ever end up on the same team is when they were partied. I don't like how they're trying to convince us right here. Our work in this area dates back as early as Call of Duty 4. Yeah, when you started assigning points, I just don't, to me, it doesn't make any sense why they're trying to convince us that we've been placebo effective for all this time. We have not been placebo effective for this entire time. Don't try to pull that. It's this type of manipulation that really it really sets me. It really does get me set off, because this shows that nothing is going to change. They drop this on us. Hey, by the way, if you point to the old games as ways that we can return to for that to be better, we did this in the old days, so clearly you're not informed. And you're not informed. Not only that, look, I know that you're upset that we just said that you're not informed, but everyone does it. Everyone does it. And I just really want to move on from that paragraph and try to have a clean slate for the rest of this, because it just shows that they don't have any respect. Like, they hired someone to do this, and the person doing it is just constantly telling us that we don't know anything. We use player performance to ensure that the disparity between the highest skilled player and the least skilled player in the lobbies isn't so vast that the players feel their match is a waste of time. That's completely understandable. And this is something that I've talked about in videos, is that, yes, when you implement skill-based matchmaking, the range of players, the difference between the top and the bottom, becomes much shorter. Your lobbies might, from back in the day, might be, the lowest might be a 0.4 KD and the highest might be a 2.7. With skill-based matchmaking, the KDs, and the KD is only one factor, right? But the KDs are probably somewhere between 0.8 and 1.2. And that's for every player, because you're always against people of similar skill. KD is no longer a relevant metric for determining how good you are as a player, because it's too easily manipulated, and the game is always changing your experience. No one is receiving the same experience across the board. So yeah, we don't want players to waste their time. I completely get that. If you jump into a game and you just get rolled, you're wasting your time. It feels terrible. Our data on player outcomes clearly indicates that the inclusion of skill in Call of Duty's multiplayer matchmaking process, as it currently stands, increases the variety of outcomes experienced by players of all skill levels. In other words, all players, regardless of skill level, are more likely to experience wins and losses more proportionately. This is illegal. The entire Call of Duty community is being held hostage because, in Call of Duty staff's mind, success in matchmaking looks like a variety of outcomes. And what that means is that you win and lose the same amount. You have that 50% win rate. And that is an absolute horrible model for which to be judging your metrics. You're going for a 50-50 win-loss. That's your goal. You want that 50-50 win-loss. You want that 1.0 KD so that everyone can have an opportunity to have an impact in each match. You are effectively doing the opposite, and you have been for years. I don't care what your data says, and don't even get me started on your sentences about data. Our data on player outcomes clearly indicate that the inclusion of skill in Call of Duty multiplayer matchmaking increases the variety of outcomes. This is the most BS marketing manager thing I have read in a long time. Why? Because it says our data on player outcomes clearly indicate what is clearly being indicated to me here. That something was clearly indicated to you? I don't trust you. You have been trying to convince me that skill-based matchmaking has been in the game since 2007. So now you want me to just say our data indicates source, just trust me, bro? I am not just trust me, bro material. I'm sorry. Outcomes clearly indicate that the inclusion of skill in Call of Duty multiplayer matchmaking process as it currently stands increases the variety of outcomes. That's what they're going for. They want you to win, and they want you to lose an equal amount. Why is that our goal? They are working way over the top hard to get people into a match that is of equal skill level. How many people do you have working on this process? How many people do you have in your matchmaking department? Because I hate to be the guy. I really do feel sad when there's like a mass layoff because someone takes a company in a new direction, or they just finished making the product and they made a bunch of money. So if they lay everybody off, they have record profits, which increases investment. It's really a horrible system sometimes. But you have how many people in your matchmaking department? I don't know. But you can probably do without pretty much all of them. Because they are trying to create this system where everyone has exactly a variety of experiences. Winning half the time, losing half the time with a 1.0 KD is not a variety of experiences. That's mush. That's mud. That's nothing. I get nothing from that. And I liked the new Call of Duty games. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 was exceptionally fun. And I liked Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2021, whenever it came out, I think. I thought they were fun games. But I didn't think that matchmaking was any good. I thought the matchmaking was one of my least favorite parts about the game. If you're going to throw out a sentence like our data on player outcomes clearly indicates, show us the data. Give us what data you're looking at. I get that whatever you're looking at is probably not absorbable for me. Okay? That's fine. Put it into a graph. If you don't know how to put it into a graph, YouTube how to put data into a graph. Okay, next paragraph. Our data shows that when lower skilled players are consistently on the losing end, they are likely to quit matches in progress or stop playing the game altogether. This is the reason for it all. I've been alluding to it. This is the reason for it all. Low skilled players are leaving matches or leaving the game altogether because they keep losing. And so, to stop that from happening, we're going to put them against other low-skill players. And give everybody a 50-50. And because high-skill players are less likely to leave, it's a win-win. And their argument throughout this entire thing is that for you, the high-skill player, this is better for you because there'll be more people in the pool. More people in the community. This is all great. No, because I'm never going to interact with them. I will never see them. They will never be in my games. My games will always be the 1KD 50-50 experience that you want it to be in multiplayer. No wonder people go to stuff like Warzone where you can actually have an impact. And I will scroll up here. The stated objective for skill and performance in the matchmaking process is used to give our players, remember, a global community with a wide skill range, you people who think you know everything, right? The opportunity to have an impact in every match. I don't get to have an impact in every match. I'm 1KD, 50-50, like you said. So you can throw around this thing that everyone gets to have an impact now, and that's and we have metrics that state that people stay around longer, and that's how we know that they're having an impact. But I'm telling you, I am not having an impact. And let's be very clear about something. Call of Duty is a fraction of the size it used to be. A fraction of the size. It used to be a lot bigger. And I'm not saying that the death of the game is correlated to skill-based matchmaking. Because I'm sure their data indicates, when we do skill-based matchmaking, it works. And even though everyone is telling us that it's terrible, it works. And it keeps players around, so we're going to keep doing it. I'm telling you, skill-based matchmaking ruins the late-game grind. For me personally, this game will never be about my ranked matches. It just won't. My competitive rank won't matter that much. I want to chase big kill streaks. I want to try builds that maybe aren't so good to go for big kill streaks. The specialist bonus is one of the most beloved changes that I have seen from my community. I've only heard positive things about specialist bonus. Why? Because it was a chase. It was an end game goal. Get specialist bonus. That's a 7 kill streak or 8. And then push for a Moab. Good luck. Nowadays, they are likely to quit matches in progress or stop playing altogether. This has an effect on the player pool. A smaller player pool means wait times for matches increase and connections may not be as strong as they should be. Stop. This is true. This sentence, a smaller player pool means wait times for matches increase and connections may not be as strong as they should be. This is true. However, we're talking about low-skill players leaving. This is who we're talking about now, correct? You're saying when low-skill players get into these matches, they leave. And when they leave, it's going to have this effect on your games. This is why you should care. Incorrect. You are placing me against high-skill players anyway. You've admitted that. So don't look at me and say I should care about what the low-skill players are doing. Because according to you, I don't. You're asking me to care about them and to care about their population strength. I get that they trickle into the high skill players, but the disparity is already so big. Don't try to trick me here. I feel like I feel like almost now that I'm deliberately trying to be tricked. If this isn't an attempt at trickery or manipulation, then it's definitely misinformed opinion. Okay, a smaller player pool means wait times for matches increase and connections may not be as strong as they should be. This is true. This can compound over time to create a spiral effect. Yes, this is what's called a negative or a positive feedback loop, depending on who's explaining it to you, where when something happens, it causes something else, which then makes that first thing more likely to happen, which causes that other thing, which then makes that more likely to happen, and this keeps going. An example of this is ice in the Arctic. Ice and snow are white, which means they reflect sunlight, which means that temperatures around ice and snow are low because there's no energy being absorbed by the ground, which then heats the air. When you melt snow, you decrease the albedo, which means you decrease the amount of reflection of light, which then heats the ground, which then heats the air, which then melts more snow. It's a feedback loop. That's what they're saying here. As more players have a bad experience, they leave. And as more players leave, that is going to mean more players have a bad experience, which means more players leave. This can compound over time to create a spiral effect. Eventually, when only high-skilled players remain because low-skilled players have quit out of frustration, the result is an ecosystem that is worse overall for everyone. How about this? You are saying that when you separate cats from mice and you put mice against mice and cats against cats, this is an ecosystem that's overall worse for everyone, but you're making it worse for the cats to start. What you're saying here is, hey, by the way, cats, the mice don't play anymore. So this is bad for you. So no matter what you do as a high skill player, no matter what you do, whether we have skill-based matchmaking or not, you're always going to go against sweaty people. Because this is the natural order of things. Didn't you just listen? Low skill players leave, which means more low skill players leave, which means more low skill players leave. So all that's left will be high skill. So no matter what you do, whether you have skill-based matchmaking or not, you're always going to go against high skill players. So at least let us put you in there with them so we can save the game for everybody else. BS. I call BS. If you do not separate us, the low skill player feedback loop, I do not believe would be that great. And even if it was, are those players really going to come back and buy every Call of Duty? All right. Game data indicates that having some limitations on the disparity of skill across the players in a match makes for a healthier ecosystem. Okay, stop. Game data indicates. What is the game data? Show us what you're looking at. Stop trying to beat around the bush. You want to have, like, this is why I was concerned about them saying in the second paragraph that, like, did they say open and honest conversation? No, just a conversation. Game data indicates, bing, 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 red flag, what's coming next? Because there's probably going to be some BS. That having some limitations on the disparity of skill across the players in a match makes for a healthier ecosystem. So, game data indicates that incorporating skill in skill-based matchmaking makes for a healthier ecosystem. That's what they're saying. What's a healthier ecosystem? Well, for them, what they have told us is, in other words, all players are more likely to experience wins and losses proportionally. Call of Duty's multiplayer matchmaking process increases the variety of outcomes experienced by players on all skill levels. This is what they're striving for. So a healthier ecosystem is one where you have a 1 KD and a 50-50 win-loss. Congratulations, you've reached the end game. And you did it from minute one. There's no grind to this game. We also understand that many high-skilled players want more variety of experience. Okay, yes, that's true. But often feel like they only get the sweatiest of lobbies. This is the overall complaint. We have heard this feedback clearly and will continue to test and actively explore ways to mitigate this concern. You're not going to mitigate the concern until you show us what your game data is indicating a healthier ecosystem. Show us what a healthier ecosystem looks like. Then we can discuss whether or not that's healthy for the game. Then show us how that game data is contributing to it. And then we can move forward from there. But we can't do anything if you're not going to show us what you're looking at. And then when they say we have heard this feedback and clearly, and will continue to test and actively explore ways to mitigate this concern, how are they going to do that? What levers of control have they implemented in the skill-based matchmaking process? Right? And I'm assuming that when you queue for a game, it takes your skill number, whichever skill number that was. And back in the day, a high score might have been 2,500, right? They take that number, which I'm assuming is a score, because if they're saying their work in this area dates back to 2007, that means they're using this score system in some way, shape, or form. They take your score, and when you get put into a match, they're going to be putting with people around the same score. I'm assuming that they can pull that lever back a little and say, okay, we're going to let more people of different skill levels together. Maybe. Maybe they'll do that. Maybe they have that incorporated. Maybe they don't. It seems like something that they should. We'll see. I think that a dialed back version of skill-based matchmaking that doesn't put first-time players together with the sweatiest people might be good. Right? Maybe like that 10 match buffer zone. Something like that. Like you've had 10 matches now, you have created class, it's time to be put with the big dogs. Future communications. Oh, I am hesitant to read this part. In addition to today's blog, our technology team is developing a ping and matchmaking white paper for those inclined to get more into the granular information about Call of Duty matchmaking. Stay tuned for more on this publication. Is the term white paper ever used for anything ever? It's the same issue I have with the term Delta. This is now the second video game company I've heard use this term, Delta. Call of Duty's matchmaking process evaluates a metric we call Delta Ping. They use this term to make themselves sound smart. It's the difference in round-trip data between your best data center. It's essentially just saying, what's your ping? You don't have to come up with your own metric for ping and call it Delta Ping to make yourself sound like you really know what you're talking about. Stop. You delete it. It's a mess. So a term like white paper, I've never heard it before. It could be completely wrong, but like, hey, we're putting out a white paper. I thought white paper, that doesn't make any sense. Isn't there supposed to be words on it? Anyways, I know I'm being super over the top right now, but I've gotten a pretty emotional with this article not being honest. It just makes me have even less hope about the future. And I know it's extremely hard. It's like when someone puts out an apology video and like people always say, never apologize to the mob, never apologize because they'll eat you alive. I get it. I'm doing something similar here. But game data indicates, our data shows. Stop that. Delta Ping. Stop. Okay, to conclude, we wanted to answer some of the most frequently asked questions from the community. Now, I did not read the FAQ, so this should be interesting. Community questions. Does Call of Duty consider player engagement, time played, as a factor in matchmaking? First of all, player engagement, time played, these are two different things. Engagement is how engaged you are while playing, like how much you're clicking around, what kind of actions are taking place, and are you clicking on the ads that are in the game? Are you clicking the challenges and doing the challenges? Not time played. This is a much different factor. Why they put them together. This is just another indication. And I know this isn't. They're more paraphrasing this question for the community. Stop. This is not what player engagement is. They are misunderstanding basic terms, which makes me very nervous. We do not consider how often or how much you play when determining matchmaking. Simple enough. We like that. Does the Call of Duty matchmaking process impact any in-game elements such as hit registration, player visibility, aim assist, damage, etc.? No. Our matchmaking process does not impact gameplay elements. This is something that I have seen rumors of in the past, where if you got too good, they would lower your damage. Interesting theory, but they are straight denying it here. Does spending money on Call of Duty content such as bundles, Battle Pass, or Black Cell change how players are matched? Money spent does not in any way, shape, or form factor into matchmaking. Okay, that's pretty decisive. I bet you they'd be willing to go under oath and explain how that isn't a thing, which is nice. They seem pretty confident in that. Does Call of Duty use bots in multiplayer matchmaking? No, they do not use bots, I'm guessing they're going to say here. Call of Duty multiplayer does not use bots as part of the general matchmaking process. If this changes in the future, we will inform the community. Okay. That's a nice little second sentence here. I think this sentence right here has a really strong place in that. I'm very happy with the way that is worded. All of these responses to these questions, but these are home run easy questions. It's like you're being interviewed by a reporter, but you're asking yourself the questions, right? Because this isn't a dialogue. This is them paraphrasing what they assume our biggest complaints are, and then responding to them one at a time with home run answers. Which, to be fair, they are decent answers. Do partners or content creators get special considerations in general matchmaking? No. We do not change the matchmaking process based on who owns the account. In specific cases, such as for events like Call of Duty Next, we may be required to customize how lobbies are formed. However, these events usually take place in private matches and do not impact general matchmaking. Okay, it's a pretty big caveat here. This is a more niche argument that they're making. However, the word usually means that they have done it in the past, which means they have the tools to do it in the future. It's just something to note. But it's nice for them to try to ease our concerns, but when they throw the word usually in there, that it means that they have to throw the word usually in there, otherwise they'd probably be lying. So there probably is an example of a time where they gave a content creator a special consideration in general matchmaking, and that's why they have to throw the word usually, because they've done it. Have you ever considered an opt-in/opt-out system for the matchmaking algorithm? An opt-in, opt-out could be interesting. It puts a lot of onus on the players. I don't think I necessarily agree with an opt-in, opt-out, but let's see what they say. Our data suggests that splitting the player base with an opt-in, opt-out matchmaking system will have a negative consequence on the overall player pool. That means, potentially, longer wait times based on the type of matchmaking selected, plus, and then they're going to, plus add in the playlist, map, mode, history, platform, and more, and matches with poor connections. Yeah, so they're saying, hey, we're already separating the player base a ton with our current selection of things. Why would we also add in an opt-in, opt-out? Which is stupid, because we are telling you as a community to take your circle here, scratch it, destroy it, skill performance, get rid of it. There. We're telling you, hey, we can help you out with this problem. How about we just to get rid of skill? And they're saying, no. Okay, well, how about an opt-in, opt-out? Oh, but we can't separate the community even more. Next question. Have you ever tested removing skill as a consideration for matchmaking? Okay. And this one has a big response. We'll see. We have run tests over the years to determine if removing skill as a consideration for matchmaking makes sense. Okay. We will continue to launch those tests periodically. To date, the data remains consistent. Oh man, I'm about to pop off with what we detailed above. Players tend to quit matches or stop playing if they're getting blown out, resulting in a negative overall experience for all players in the lobby and general player population. We purposefully do not disclose when these tests occur because it may impact feedback or the data we see during these tests. I want to explode like a volcano, but I don't want to make a statement that is like in any way wrong. So let's start here. We have run tests over the years to determine if removing skill as a consideration for matchmaking makes sense. A good thing, in my opinion. How long were these tests? Can we see overall data statistics on these tests? No, they're going to say the data remains consistent, meaning, listen, we've run some secret tests, and what we're seeing is low skill players leaving, and that's what we're trying to avoid. First of all, you said that if they're getting stomped, they leave, right? How often is that happening? What percentage of players are leaving games? Can we get a percentage? Can we get a percentage? Can we get something to indicate how often this is happening? Because you're just saying low skill players leave, and this is why we can't implement any of these. We can't implement any of these features or remove skill-based matchmaking because low skill players are leaving. Give us a percentage. Give us something besides our data indicates. Because you're asking us to sacrifice most of our endgame grind. You're asking us to sacrifice most of what makes this game fun. At least tell us why. Because the data indicates that low skill players leave. How many of them are leaving? Let us know. Because to me, I don't care that low skill players are leaving personally. Because you don't put me with them in the first place. One. So why should I care? Why is that in this blog post? You said you're writing this for this audience, but then tried to trick us and say that we should care when we don't get placed with them anyways? If they can come up with some data, I'm for this. But these real quick secret surveys to gather data which they read for themselves, and they do not disclose what data they're getting. They're just saying, yep, this is we've got data and this is the result. How about this? You run an open public test. You get data, you release the data to the public, let us come up with conclusions, you come up with conclusions, we get our conclusions, we come together, we have a conversation of what's better for the game. Instead of you running secret tests, getting data, telling us what the data means to you, when I can read the data way differently. And I know that's true because every single time I have ever read a graph in any sort of classroom setting, any sort of instructional setting, of any type in a newspaper, someone next to me reads it differently than what I do. Run a test. Give us the data. Let us come together with terms and with ideas about what the data means, then have a conversation. Instead, you're telling us that we can't get rid of it because we found this problem, and, well, your solution doesn't fix that problem. Maybe the problem that you find Call of Duty was the biggest that it ever was when it ran with the old system. Players started leaving, they started panicking, and they came up with a solution. The solution is dog. But it looks good on a graph. It looks good for shareholders. More players are playing the game. We're getting more people to play the game. But why is it not? But what's going on with the Call of Duty magic? This is it. This is the problem. They are taking players out of matches, giving them a number, and putting them back into a match with that number with players of similar numbers based on their overall performance. Remove it and the game is saved. Have you considered removing skill from matchmaking in specific multiplayer modes? We have considered this in the past, and we'll continue to examine if this idea makes sense as part of the experimental playlist or in specific modes. We have nothing to announce on that front today. No, in other words, that's not going to happen. Thank you for your feedback and for being a part of the community. We'll see you in the lobby. Okay, so did they give us information? Did they give us a place to send our feedback? No. Is there a contact us? Is there a place to send in an email, maybe? Is there a place where we can, maybe we can go to callofduty.com and we can send in some feedback. We go to the support page. Ooh. Okay. Feedback? Maybe some, this is what I'm talking about, guys. They don't actually care. They just want to throw us an article and say, this is why skill-based matchmaking is in the game, because we don't want low-skilled players to leave, and your proposed solution is wrong. Well, I'm saying, after reading your article, I still think it's right. So, we'll never agree. Anyways, thank you for watching. That's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe to see more videos like this one, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.